Hello, wonderful people. We are now on episode 3 of the three-part series of lockdown lessons. So on the first video I did 2 weeks ago, or no, 3 weeks ago now, it was all about what was my reaction and my response when it first kicked off, when we got the news, what worked about my reaction, what didn't work about it, what could have worked better. And then in the second episode, I looked at where I was about 9 weeks in, about halfway in, what worked about my reaction there. So in the first one, I was very much reactive and sort of going into sort of like crisis management, just straight out there, getting things done. Started to get a bit of fatigue in the middle and started feeling exhausted and realized I wasn't working at my best. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And today I want to talk about what happened when the lockdowns were lifted, when we were allowed to come out of lockdown, because I really struggled with this part of it, which was interesting to notice because I know lots of people really struggled when we went into lockdown, whereas I was like in there just getting on doing, taking action. It was fine. Over did a lot, got tired. When we started coming out of lockdown, that was the most challenging time for me and still continues to be the most challenging time for me. And partly it's because it's brought up old patterns for me. So when the rules were very clear, stay at home, only shop if you have to, only go for essentials, I could go, right, I don't really need any of this. I don't need to go anywhere. I literally went shopping fortnightly and I stayed at home. That was a really clear-cut rule. When they started saying that you can, and exercising for an hour a day, I was like, I can go and exercise. So when they started saying you can meet with people, well, that bit was when I started, I suppose that's when it started lifting. I went and had a walk with people. But what I discovered is what my perception, as in physically, without getting a tape measure out, what I thought 2 meters was versus what other people thought it was. And even when it was measured and it was on the floor, my perception of 2 meters is actually more like 4 meters. So I feel like we're 2 meters apart when we're actually 4 meters. So I was definitely needing and wanting more space. And I know that now, even in, it's a thing for me anyway, if people get too close to me, I often feel I sort of want to walk back. So physically having space around me has always been a thing for me. And so what I found when we came out of lockdown is that this understanding what the rules are, what is 2 meters. And then when you go shopping and people are coming near you and people are just doing things that you think, well, that's not the rules. So I really, really struggled when lockdown was lifted and pubs started opening and families started coming together in bubbles. Even eventually my daughter came in under our bubble and we thought we can have a cuddle, and we had a hug and it was great and I'd really missed hugging her. But then it felt wrong. It felt like, well, the virus is still here. I could still be transmitting it to you. You still work with vulnerable people. You're working with vulnerable people. You're out more than me. You could transmit it. So it was almost like, well, they might be telling us it's okay to do it, but actually I'm not okay with it. And so at one point, I was really starting to, I found myself, I burst into tears randomly for no reason. And I said to Mark, I've got really tight chest pains, like doing any of my Keep Fit, everything was hard work, it hurt. And I would say that probably listening to how other people describe it, I was virtually having panic attacks. I was getting really, really anxious about going out. And in one example, I had this situation where some girlfriends have arranged to meet us. We went for a walk, we went to each other's garden, and it was just, I found it really stressful because how I'd interpreted the rules versus how they'd interpreted the rules was very, very different. And what I realized is there'd been a broadcast saying that from Friday there was new rules, and they were operating with those new rules ahead of the time, and I hadn't even heard them. And so it kind of explained where was going on. Now, fortunately for me, what works about the work that I do is I spend my whole time with people in groups, unpacking the unspoken and hidden architecture, the rules that we're all living our life by. So, for example, if you have a rule that if someone talks over you, they're rude. If someone talks over you, then you'll immediately feel they're rude and you'll have your reaction and response to that. But if somebody else has a rule that talking over means you're really interested, you're enthusiastic and you're engaging and you're participating, you have miscommunication just because the actual behavior has a different interpretation. You infer different things from it. And I spend my whole life in my working life unpacking that and helping people understand why it was going on. So I was really fortunate that when I started having this anxiety and these mini meltdowns and feeling very emotional and not being able to go out and not wanting to go out, I really understood why it was happening. And so therefore I had some choice. And what worked for me was to go, okay, so we have difference of opinions. And if I'm going to meet people, I need to tell them what I need in order to feel like I'm complying with the rules and what I need to feel safe. Otherwise, all the time I'm with them, I'm stressing over what it is that the rule. I'm more focused on the rules being broken or being kept than I am enjoying their company. In which case, I'd rather not bother with the connection, i.e., going to meet people. I'd rather stay at home because it's less stressful. So that's really worked for me, and I've managed to speak to a couple of people. And anybody who I can't have that conversation with, who I can't say to them, I'm happy to come, but in order for me to be comfortable with it, this is what I need. What's so interesting is I've spent the last 12 years learning how to do that in real life. Right now with the pandemic, what's working is it doesn't seem unreasonable for people to ask for their needs to be met. Sometimes though, which is what happens in everyday life with any situation when you're asking for your needs to be met, if you asking for something then has an impact on other people, or they interpret as the way they're doing it is wrong, that's when sometimes we can have conflict. It's when we can hold each other in contempt. And I'm very fortunate to have built a strong network of people up that I can say to them, look, I'm struggling with this. I'm not comfortable with it. I need you to wear a mask, or I want to I'm going to wear a mask, and I need to know that you're going to be okay with it. And if you're not okay with it, then I would rather just not come. And I need to know that we're okay as a relationship, and that's not going to impact our relationship if I make that decision. And it's been quite challenging. I'm recording this now in the early part of July before I go away in August. And it's my best friend's birthday. And she said, well, we can't go in the garden, so we can either go outside the front or we can come indoors. What are you most comfortable with? Because I'd already had a conversation with her about not being very comfortable with some of the changes. And I said, well, from Friday, we've all got to wear masks and gloves when we're indoors, when we go shopping, etc. So I said, it makes sense to me that if we keep a social distance and wear masks and gloves, it will all be okay. And so I wore masks and gloves, but they didn't. And as I sat there for a little while, I was like, well, this is their house. It's only me that needs to protect putting stuff into their house and taking stuff away. And we kept our distance. We at no time were ever more than 2 meters close to each other. And it was just really good to be able to have those conversations up front and talk about it. And that just as we're I'm recording this, I'm about to go and meet up we've got 5 children, so 3 of them don't live locally. So we've got meetings with them, and we're trying to negotiate how the space is going to work with our camper van and tent area, how we can get people in and keep social distance and eat with each other and keep it all safe. So, I'm saying to them, bring your packed lunches, bring your drinks with you, then we can keep ourselves safe. If you bring your own stuff and take your own stuff back, we're going to be able to do it. So what could have worked better? I don't think anything could have worked better. I actually am really pleased that I've got the tools and resources I've got from the training that I run, the courses I run, where I'm teaching people to listen to and get clarity of what they want, have the confidence in the process of asking for their needs to be met, and being able to engage with any feedback that they get, and ultimately changing the way that they listen to and act on the feedback. It is difficult when what you want and what you need to be able to work, learn and live at your best, it's going to stop somebody else from working, learning and live at their best. But if you continually compromise what you need, then you end up where the relationship isn't on a strong footing, because you're not really at your best. You're there, but you're not really present. You're stressed or anxious about stuff. So actually being able to look through and be able to fulfill that and actually say, well, actually what I need to be at my best is this, and then being able to ask for it and have the resilience and the resolve to listen to whatever people have got to say. One of the things that's really worked about the pandemic is that there's an open discussion about fears and concerns. And what I would like to have happen going forward after the pandemic is for people to use the same tools where they've got this common understanding that there's this unspoken thing that we can't see, this virus that we know can hurt people, and none of us really know how it works, and we're all having to negotiate and check in with each other and find out what people are comfortable with. That's what we should be doing in life anyway. We all have unspoken rules. We all have things, fears, concerns that we don't always bring to the front. We can't always see them and hear them, but they're there happening. And if we don't have the right support network in place, we can't ask those questions to be able to support each other through it. So that brings us to the end of the series of 3 of the lockdown lessons. I hope you found them useful. I'd like to know for you, as you came out of lockdown, what was your reaction and response? What was happening for you as you came out of lockdown? What worked? When you reflect on that, what worked about your reaction? What's the takeaways and the lessons that you learned that you've got to keep hold of and want to take forward? And is there anything that could have worked better? And I haven't answered that question, but I just feel like I just want to check in with myself. Well, yeah, what could have worked better is for me to remember all the tools and resources I had. And the big thing that's happened with all of the pattern I can see over 3 of them is if I'd stopped and had some time and checked what I needed before I'd gone to any of these meetings, at least then I'd have a solid decision of my own needs and wants before I go there. But I'm also happy with about sometimes you think you're going to be okay and you go there and your reaction to it is different to what you expected. And I'm just really grateful that I've got the support network that I have now and the tools to have those honest and helpful conversations. That means that our relationship is okay and that my reaction to it is separate. It's not a reflection of them. It's just, this is how I'm feeling right now. And I can actually say to them when I'm at worst what I need in order to get back to my best. So I hope you found this useful. I'll be back in the office by next Monday, back here live on YouTube and Facebook, Step by Step Listening's page. I look forward to going through your responses when I get back. Speak to you soon.